Among the mountains of twisted metal and abandoned dreams at Machado's Junkyard, António Silva never imagined that his 82 years of passion for automobiles would lead him to the most extraordinary discovery of his life. What began as a simple search for parts for his old Beetle transformed into a journey that would shake the very foundations of worldwide automotive history. Under a dusty tarp hidden among wreckage destined for destruction sat a cherry-red sports car that defied any identification. Its elegant lines and handcrafted components whispered secrets from a lost era, while unique details suggested something far beyond an ordinary automobile. The V8 engine with its mysterious configuration, the instrument panel with unconventional gauges, and especially that small metal plate on the console, Prototipo E00305. These were clues to an enigma that would make any enthusiast's heart race with excitement. But it was when carefully cleaning the rear of the vehicle that Antonio encountered a sight that left him breathless. Emerging from decades of accumulated grime, a metal emblem revealed a name that existed only in automotive legends: Serafim Velocità, the phantom Italian manufacturer of the 1960s, which had supposedly vanished, taking with it revolutionary technological secrets and only 5 prototypes never found. Suddenly, this elderly retiree found himself in possession of the holy grail of classic cars, one of the most sought-after and least understood vehicles in automotive history. A machine built by dissident engineers from Ferrari and Lamborghini, incorporating technologies that would only be adopted decades later and which had remained hidden for over 50 years, waiting for capable hands to awaken its secrets. While experts from around the world confirmed the discovery's authenticity and offered fortunes for its acquisition, Antonio made a decision that would shock the international collector community. Instead of selling or donating the treasure to a museum, he chose a far riskier and more controversial path, a plan that would test not only his skills as a restorer, but also his determination to honor the lost legacy of the geniuses who created that extraordinary machine. But would an 82-year-old man have the strength to face the greatest challenge of his life? And what other mysteries would that unique prototype hide in its metallic depths, waiting to revolutionize everything we thought we knew about automotive evolution? The answer was about to rewrite the history of world motorsport. António Silva walked slowly through the yard of Machado's Junkyard, his 82 years weighing on shoulders bent by time. The morning sun filtered through piles of twisted metal, creating shadows that danced among the wreckage of abandoned automotive dreams. He had come there with a specific mission: to find parts to restore his old 1968 Beetle, a relic he had kept for decades in his garage. The smell of rancid oil and rust permeated the air, mixing with the nostalgia that always accompanied him when he visited places like this. His fingers, marked by the wrinkles of age, delicately touched the cold metals, as if each piece told a story. It was a ritual he had repeated for years, a way to keep alive the passion he had nurtured for automobiles since his youth. At the back of the yard, almost hidden behind a mountain of old tires and dented bumpers, something caught his attention. It was the unmistakable silhouette of a sports car, covered by a dusty tarp that had already lost its original color. Antonio felt his heart race, a sensation he hadn't experienced in a long time. Carefully, he moved aside some debris that blocked his path, ignoring the joint pains that protested against the effort. As he approached, he could distinguish the elegant lines of the vehicle through the fabric that protected it. It was different from everything he had seen in that place, too well preserved to be destined for destruction. His intuition as a veteran automotive enthusiast screamed that he had found something special. With hands trembling with anticipation, Antonio pulled the tarp, gradually revealing what was hidden underneath. First appeared a slightly fogged windshield, then a hood with fluid lines in cherry red that, despite the accumulated dust, still maintained a subtle shine. The wheels, with chrome rims in perfect condition, suggested that someone had taken good care of that car before abandoning it there. The interior, visible through the side windows, showed black leather seats that seemed almost intact. It was a model he couldn't immediately identify, something rare in his more than 60 years of passion for automobiles. The bodywork showed only small, superficial scratches, nothing that couldn't be easily repaired by skillful hands. João Machado, the junkyard owner, approached with curiosity upon seeing the unusual movement at the back of his property. He was a middle-aged man, with hands eternally dirty with grease and a cigarette always hanging from the corner of his mouth. He had known Antonio for more than 20 years and knew of his reputation as a restorer of classic cars. "Found something interesting, Señor Antonio?" he asked, throwing the cigarette butt on the ground and stepping on it. The elderly man turned with eyes shining in a way that João hadn't seen in a long time. "This car, where did it come from?" questioned Antonio, unable to disguise the anxiety in his voice. João scratched his head, trying to remember the details of acquiring that specific vehicle. "It arrived here about 3 months ago, along with other cars from an inheritance that nobody wanted," he replied casually. The story told by João awakened even more curiosity in Antonio. The car had belonged to an eccentric collector who lived in an isolated mansion on the outskirts of the city. When the man died, without direct heirs, his belongings were auctioned, but many cars ended up being considered without commercial value by buyers. "The family just wanted to get rid of everything quickly," explained João, lighting another cigarette. "They said the old man was kind of crazy, collected strange cars that nobody knew." Antonio felt a chill down his spine upon hearing those words. He knew stories of collectors who owned unique vehicles, prototypes or experimental models that never reached mass production. The possibility of having found something like that made his heart race with emotion and apprehension. He needed to examine that car more closely. He needed to discover its secrets. With João's permission, Antonio began a meticulous inspection of the mysterious vehicle. His experienced hands traveled over every centimeter of the bodywork, feeling the superior quality of the metal and paint. The car was definitely European, probably Italian, judging by the aggressive and elegant lines that characterized sports cars from the peninsula. There were no visible license plates or documentation, which increased the mystery even more. Upon opening the hood, Antonio found himself facing a V8 engine of unusual configuration, with components that seemed handcrafted, as if they had been manufactured specifically for that vehicle. The chassis numbering was partially erased, but it was still possible to distinguish some digits that didn't correspond to any known pattern. It was as if that car had been built not to be easily identified. The interior revealed even more peculiarities that left Antonio intrigued. The instrument panel presented unique gauges, with scales and markings that didn't follow the conventional standards of the era. There was a small golden emblem on the steering wheel that he couldn't recognize, even with all his experience. The seats, although worn by time, were clearly of high quality, custom-made for that specific model. A small metal plate on the center. Console bore an enigmatic numbering, Prototipo 003005. Antonio felt his blood freeze upon reading those words. He was facing a prototype, one of only 5 examples manufactured of something that never reached dealerships. The discovery made him tremble with emotion and responsibility, as he knew he had in his hands a piece of world automotive history. Determined not to let that rarity go to destruction, Antonio negotiated with João the purchase of the car. The junkyard owner, who had no idea of the real value of what he possessed, agreed to sell it for a symbolic price, considering it just as another old car that took up space. Antonio paid in cash using his retiree's savings and immediately arranged transportation to his home workshop. Throughout the entire journey, he couldn't stop, thinking about the possibilities that discovery represented. It could be the lost prototype of some famous manufacturer, perhaps an experimental model that was never properly documented. The excitement was such that he could barely contain the desire to immediately begin restoration. He knew he would need great care and research not to damage something that could be unique in the world. Back at his workshop, Antonio initiated the process of cleaning and detailed evaluation of the vehicle. Each layer of dust removed revealed more details of the exceptional construction of that automobile. The quality of the finishes surpassed anything he had seen in his years of experience, suggesting it had been built without budget limitations. The mechanical components, although old, were in surprising state of conservation, as if the car had run very little before being stored. Antonio began to photographically document each detail, creating a complete record of the prototype's original state. He suspected that discovery could interest museums or collectors specialized in automotive rarities. But first, he needed to discover the true identity of that treasure on wheels. It was then that Antonio decided to examine more carefully the rear part of the car, where usually the identifying emblems of brand and model were located. With a damp cloth, he began to delicately clean the area around the trunk lock. Gradually, under layers of dirt and aged wax, the outline of a metallic emblem began to appear. It was small, discreet, but with impeccable finishing. As the cleaning progressed, Antonio could distinguish intricate details in the design. It was a kind of stylized shield with elements that seemed to represent speed and elegance. Below the emblem, in tiny and elegant letters, was engraved something that made his heart almost stop. It was a name he knew only from automotive legends, a manufacturer that supposedly had disappeared decades before, taking with it secrets that were never revealed to the public. The revealed emblem showed the symbol of Serafim Velocità, a legendary Italian manufacturer that had operated in secret during the 1960s. Antonio knew the story through specialized magazines and conversations with other collectors. The company had been founded by a group of dissident engineers from Ferrari and Lamborghini who wanted to create even more exclusive and extreme cars. According to legends, Serafim produced only a small series of prototypes before mysteriously disappearing, taking with it all records and documents. The real existence of these vehicles had never been confirmed, and many considered Serafim Velocità just a myth created by enthusiasts. But there was the tangible proof in his hands that the company really existed and produced automobiles of exceptional quality. The discovery had historical proportions that went beyond his individual understanding. With hands trembling with emotion, Antonio ran to his personal library, filled with books and magazines about classic automobiles. He frantically searched for any reference to Serafim Velocità, revisiting publications he had read decades before. In an Italian magazine from 1967, he found a small mention about rumors of a new artisanal manufacturer that would be developing revolutionary cars in secret. Another French publication from 1969 carried a note about the sudden disappearance of important engineers from the Italian automotive industry. The puzzle pieces were beginning to fit together, confirming that his discovery was much more significant than he had imagined. Antonio realized he was facing one of the greatest finds in automotive collecting history. He needed to act with extreme caution to properly preserve and document this unique rarity. Deciding to seek specialized help, Antonio contacted Giuseppe Morelli, an Italian restorer he had met at a classic car exhibition years before. Giuseppe was recognized worldwide for his work with rare vehicles and had connections with the main automotive museums of Europe. When Antonio sent photographs of the emblem and described the car, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mio Dio," Giuseppe finally murmured. "If this is true, you found the holy grail of classic cars." The Italian explained that there were only legends about 5 Serafim prototypes that would have been built before the company disappeared. 2 supposedly had been destroyed in tests, 1 had disappeared during transport, and the other 2 were never located. The numbering 0305 on the console made perfect sense with this historical information. Giuseppe immediately organized a trip to Brazil to personally examine Antonio's find. His arrival, a week later, was like the visit of an archaeologist to a historical discovery of worldwide importance. The Italian specialist spent hours examining each detail of the car, photographing, measuring, and making meticulous notes. "Questo è autentico," he finally declared with tears in his eyes. "This is really a Serafim Velocità prototype, probably the only complete example that remained in the world." Giuseppe explained that the company had been dissolved after financial problems and internal disputes, but that the cars produced represented the pinnacle of Italian artisanal engineering. The engine, according to him, incorporated technologies that would only be adopted by the industry decades later. It was a time machine on wheels, preserving knowledge and techniques that were lost with the manufacturer's disappearance. The confirmation of the find's authenticity brought immense responsibility to Antonio. Giuseppe explained that that car didn't belong only to him, but to human history. Museums from around the world had already expressed interest in exhibiting it, and collectors offered astronomical amounts for its acquisition. But the elderly Brazilian had other plans for his treasure on wheels. "I didn't save it to sell it or lock it in a museum," he declared, with determination. "This car was made to run, to show what it's capable of. I'm going to restore it and make it return to the streets, as its creators dreamed." Giuseppe tried to dissuade him, arguing about the risks of damaging a unique piece of automotive history. But Antonio was unwavering. He had found the car of his dreams and intended to honor the legacy of Serafim Velocitas engineers in the only way he considered appropriate. The restoration of the Serafim Velocita became the most important project of Antonio's life. With technical help from Giuseppe and other specialists who traveled to Brazil specifically to participate in the work, each component was carefully dismantled, catalogued, and restored. The process lasted 2 years, during which the elderly man's workshop was transformed into a true automotive archaeology laboratory. Each piece revealed secrets of advanced engineering from the 1960s, technologies that were decades ahead of their time. The engine was completely rebuilt, respecting the original specifications and using artisanal techniques similar to those employed by the original builders. The cherry red paint was meticulously reproduced, following the original formula discovered in documents that Giuseppe managed to locate in Italian archives. Throughout the entire process, Antonio documented each stage, creating a complete record that would be valuable for future generations of scholars. The day of the restored car's first test was emotionally overwhelming beyond words. Antonio, at 84 years old, sat behind the wheel of the Serafim Velocita with the reverence of someone touching a sacred relic. The engine came to life with a deep and musical roar that echoed through the workshop, making every tool on the workbenches vibrate. Giuseppe, filming the historic moment, couldn't contain his tears of emotion. "It's exactly how it should sound," he murmured, remembering the descriptions left by the original engineers. Antonio gently pressed the accelerator, feeling the immediate and smooth response of the engine. Each component worked in perfect harmony, as if the car had been finished yesterday by its original creators. It was the resurrection of a dream that had remained dormant for more than 5 decades, waiting for capable hands to restore it to life. The first outing on the streets with the restored Serafim Velocita caused a sensation in the local community of automotive enthusiasts. The unique sound of the engine and the incomparable elegance of the car's lines attracted stares wherever it passed. Antonio drove carefully, but with determination, savoring every moment behind the wheel of the rarity he had saved from destruction. The vehicle's performances exceeded all expectations, confirming that Serafim's engineers had really created something extraordinary. Accelerating, braking, taking curves, each maneuver was executed with a precision and smoothness that few modern cars could match. Giuseppe, who closely followed the tests, meticulously documented the vehicle's behavior, creating valuable data about the real capabilities of the lost prototypes. It was as if they were discovering technological secrets that had remained hidden for decades. The story of the Serafim Velocita's discovery and restoration spread quickly through the international community of collectors and enthusiasts. Specialized magazines from around the world published articles about Antonio's extraordinary find and the meticulous restoration work. The elderly Brazilian became a celebrity in the automotive world, receiving invitations to events and exhibitions at the most prestigious auto shows. But he remained faithful to his principles, using the car regularly and allowing others to see it and even drive it on special occasions. Cars were made to be lived, not just admired, he used to tell visitors who came to see his discovery. Museums continued offering fabulous amounts for the vehicle's acquisition, but Antonio always politely refused, explaining that his mission was to keep the Serafim Velocita legacy alive through responsible use and active appreciation. Years later, when Antonio turned 90, he looked at the Serafim Velocita in his garage with a smile of deep satisfaction. He had saved more than a car from destruction. He had preserved a piece of human history and realized the dream of generations of visionary engineers. The vehicle continued functioning perfectly, a testament to the exceptional quality of its construction and the care with which it had been restored. Giuseppe, who had become a close friend over the years, visited regularly to check the car's condition and plan its preservation for future generations. Together, they had decided that the Seraphim Velocita would eventually be donated to a specialized museum, but only when Antonio could no longer personally care for it. Until then, the legendary prototype would continue fulfilling its true mission, inspiring passion and admiration for a golden era of automotive engineering, proving that some dreams can resist time and find a second chance to shine.